Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to unpack a truly fascinating sequence of events. We're going to reconstruct step by step the strictly chronological story of how one brilliant veteran detective used a single microscopic anomaly to completely unravel a multi-million-dollar city corruption ring. Honestly, it's a total masterclass in observation. The evidence we're looking at today tells this incredible story of greed, meticulous police work, and the ultimate price of justice. So let's get right into it.
Our story starts exactly 14 months prior to the dramatic conclusion of the case. I want you to picture a slow Tuesday night at a warehouse down on Mercer Street. Detective Raymond Voss responds to a routine noise complaint. Now, this is the kind of call police officers get 100 times a year. They found nothing, it was totally routine, and by all accounts, it really should have been completely forgettable. But, as we're about to see, this single, seemingly empty warehouse visit was the exact domino that started this whole thing in motion.
You see, the man who answered that call was Detective Raymond Voss, and Ray wasn't just your average cop. He was a veteran of 26 years. He was the kind of guy who woke up to iron his shirts at 5 a.m. sharp, and he always kept exactly 3 backup pens in his jacket pocket. And incredibly, over his nearly 3 decades on the force, he had a flawless 100% case solve rate. He never left a single case unsolved. Ray was an obsessively detail-oriented investigator. And that specific personality trait is exactly why he didn't just clear the noise complaint call and drive away. Instead, he took a moment to scan that empty warehouse parking lot.
What he saw in that lot was a tiny detail that just didn't fit the scene. There was a car parked in one of the 3 reserved spaces, and sitting right there in the windshield was a laminated parking permit. Now, okay, that alone obviously isn't a crime, but Ray noticed it was a city vehicle. It was a fleet car registered to the Department of Urban Planning, and it was parked at an abandoned warehouse at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. So Ray wrote it down because, well, Ray wrote everything down. He let that tiny anomaly sit for a month, and then, on another slow night, he decided to pull the city's fleet records to see who checked it out.
Ray traced that fleet car back to a man named Douglas Harn. And Harn was, for all intents and purposes, a deeply ordinary, unremarkable mid-level planning coordinator. He'd been at the department for 16 years. Nothing special. But Ray started watching Harn carefully, and he quietly uncovered a hidden connection between this mid-level worker and one of the city's most powerful figures. And wow, the contrast between Harn and this other guy, Conrad Stell, was staggering. Stell was a 61-year-old, practically untouchable, wealthy investor. We're talking a man in tailored suits who sat on hospital boards, had a university building named after him, and regularly grabbed lunch with the mayor. They belonged in completely different universes.
But the mechanics of their hidden scam were actually brilliant in their simplicity. Here's how it worked. Step 1, Douglas Harn used his department access to secretly flag top-secret rezoning applications. Step 2, Harn fed this inside information straight to Conrad Stell, who then quietly bought up the cheap land using a web of untraceable shell companies. Step 3, the city would finally announce the rezoning to the public, which instantly skyrocketed the land's value. And finally, Step 4, Stell would sell the land off, making 3 to 5 times his original investment. To the untrained eye, it looked completely clean and legal, but Ray traced every single step of it.
For over a year, Ray meticulously tracked their parking permits, the shell company registrations, and the wire transfers. He was building an airtight case. But this shadow network had eyes in places Ray hadn't anticipated. Just 3 days before the ultimate tragedy of this story, Ray pulled financial documents on Conrad Stell's holdings, and that quiet little action tripped a silent alarm within the corrupt network. Someone with access to the dispatch records leaked the information that a detective was snooping around Stell's money. A phone call was made, and the trap was set.
Which brings us to a chilly Tuesday morning in November. Just 3 days after that fatal leak, Detective Raymond Voss was found dead. He was slumped in his car outside a parking garage on Mercer Street, assassinated by a single bullet to the back of the skull. The man who had never left a case unsolved had suddenly, tragically, become a case himself.
Whoever did this was a pro. This was a perfectly clean hit, professional, deliberate, no mistakes. There were absolutely no witnesses and not a single shell casing left behind. The parking garage's security cameras had mysteriously gone offline at exactly 11:47 p.m., which was exactly 43 minutes before Ray's estimated time of death. But the hitman missed one crucial psychological detail. Ray's partner of 9 years, Detective Alara Mendez, knew his habits perfectly, and she immediately noticed that Ray's ever-present personal notebook, the one he literally never, ever went anywhere without, was missing from his body.
Now, Alara knew that meant one of two things. Either the killer took it, or Ray, knowing he was being hunted, had hidden it. 2 agonizing weeks passed by with absolutely no answers. Then, out of nowhere, the missing notebook arrived in the mail at the precinct. It showed up in a plain, padded envelope with no return address. It turned out it was sent by Ray himself. It was his ultimate contingency plan, put in motion right before he died to ensure his work would survive even if he didn't.
Inside that padded envelope were exactly 53 pages. 53 pages of Ray's cramped, obsessive, highly precise handwriting. It contained his entire 14-month investigation. We're talking every observation, every timeline, every shell company, every wire transfer, and every single rezoning date of the Shadow Network. It was an unnervingly complete case file just sitting there waiting to be read.
And the absolute most crucial part of this entire 53-page notebook was the very last circled entry on the final page. It was a beyond-the-grave instruction from Ray directly to his partner. It just read, "If you're reading this, I was right. Start with the parking permit." He didn't tell her to start with the billionaire or dig into the shell companies or even look for the hitman. He pointed her directly back to the very first domino. He told Alara exactly how to finish what he had started.
Following his final breadcrumb, Alara bypassed the garage where Ray was murdered entirely. Instead, she went back to retracing his steps to the original Mercer Street warehouse from 14 months ago. Now, the place was an empty lot back then, but it had since been turned into a luxury apartment complex. She pulled the rezoning applications, she pulled the records for the original warehouse, and she meticulously cross-referenced the city fleet checkout logs with Douglas Harn's badge swipes. She was hunting for the exact same anomaly Ray had spotted all those months ago.
And finally, looking deep into the city records, she found it. She discovered exactly what Ray had seen that Tuesday night. It all came down to a simple renewal sticker. You see, the standard practice for city parking permits was to have quarterly renewal stickers. But the permit sitting in Harney's car on that Tuesday night 14 months ago, it had a renewal sticker dated 2 months in the future.
This right here was the loose thread. Harney had needed to be at a clandestine meeting where he absolutely was not supposed to be. So, to cover his tracks, he forged a fake parking permit. He was careful, sure, but he was also clumsy. He literally got the future date wrong on the fake renewal sticker. It's almost absurd when you think about it, a multi-million-dollar corruption ring completely unraveling over a tiny clerical error, but Harney had the terrible luck of crossing paths with Ray Voss, who was probably the only detective on the force observant enough to ever spot it.
Armed with this knowledge and Ray's incredibly dense case file, Alara didn't wait around. She walked directly into Conrad Stell's luxurious downtown office. Stell looked at her with this polite, slightly bored patience of a powerful man who had literally never been questioned by the police in his entire life. And then, Alara just dropped Ray's notebook right onto his fancy conference table. She outlined every single undeniable detail of the case to this untouchable billionaire. She walked him through the shell companies, the wire transfers, and yes, the wrongly dated parking permit. And right before Stella's highly paid lawyers could even burst into the room to shield him, Alara left him with a chilling final realization. She said, "He was right about everything, and you were wrong about one thing. You thought killing him would stop it." Following that confrontation, the billionaire's impenetrable shield just completely shattered. The entire Shadow Network collapsed under the sheer, methodical weight of the evidence Ray had spent 14 months compiling. They had successfully silenced the detective, for sure, but his meticulously organized data spoke so much louder than a courtroom full of witnesses ever could.
The fallout was incredibly swift and absolute. Douglas Harn broke down and cooperated within 48 hours. He actually cried for the first 11 minutes of his interview, confessing that he'd been terrified and trapped in this scheme for 8 long years. Conrad Stale faced a 6-week trial, and despite his expensive legal team, he was handed a 22-year sentence. And even the hitman, a former security contractor named Webb, couldn't escape. He was caught and given a life sentence, which was ironically traced through cell tower data that Ray had quietly flagged in his own notes right before his death. On the very morning of the sentencing, Alara returned to the completely ordinary Mercer Street parking garage where her partner had been killed. Sitting in the exact spot where his car was found, amidst the cold concrete and the smell of exhaust, she thought about the man who just wouldn't let a wrong date go.
He had managed to solve his own final case. And then, officially passing the torch, Alara opened her own notebook to continue his legacy.
Detective Ray Voss's ultimate sacrifice proved that the biggest, most destructive secrets are often hidden right out in the open, concealed within the smallest anomalies. A single wrongly dated sticker brought down an entire empire. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder. What seemingly insignificant clues and small details are you walking blindly past in your own daily life? Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this incredible story. Keep observing, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.